Welcome, everybody, to the entrepreneurial skills session for today. This is our first time running it on YouTube, so I am managing any technical challenges that might come up. But this is going to be the first day. There may be a bit of a lag between what I'm saying and what's going on in the video and when you guys are seeing it. But this is day one, so we will see how we get on. We're going to go through the same material as we've been going through the last week. For anyone who's new, first time here, my name's Joe Lanzillotta. I manage the Student Entrepreneurship Program at Tangent, Trinity's Ideas Workspace. And given the COVID-19 outbreak, we've taken open hours and some of the workshops that we would normally be doing in the Tangent space and are bringing them online. So this is one way that we're able to do that. We're looking at diversifying and doing a lot more things over the coming weeks and months. Depends how long we're going to be inside, but this will probably be something that we continue to do even once everything goes back to normal. So for today, as you guys will see at the top of the screen, we have topic number 5. We have done the first 4 topics. For anybody interested in looking at them, you can go to the URL that's right at the top of the screen. You'll see it there. It's toolkit.techstars.com, or you can just Google the Techstars Toolkit. And you can actually go through all the exercises on your own. They recently put in a lot more than they previously had. It had been maybe 5 or 6 exercises. There are now 18. So a part of this is myself going through all of the workshops and things that they have, but also being able to interact and answer any questions that people have. So before I do start, I am going to ask that at least somebody who's in the chat there, if you're able to type something into the chat just to make sure that it is working. I'll wait a minute or two and just to see if you're able to do that, because I know that there is a bit of a lag, and then my ability to respond to you is going to be based on what we're talking about, based on what we're going through, but also I'm here to watch and enjoy alongside you guys. So if somebody is able to type into the chat, that would be hugely helpful, just so I can know that everything is on track for us. And then we'll get started. We'll go right into position your product and go through the videos that we have. There, I see Margaret, I see Colum. Welcome, guys. So it's the first session, so thanks for that. I'm not sure if we're going to have a lot of people today, but what I found, as Margaret is back, the people who do come along get a lot out of it, and hopefully we'll see more of you guys as the weeks go on. And also, I'll get better at this, so we'll see how we get on. But yeah, so I'll just dive right into it then. As I said, if you guys, Joseph's here too. Welcome, Joseph. So as you guys as we go through, if you do have questions, if you do have comments, you are more than welcome to put them in the chat on the side. Margaret, I see, yeah, she was here for last week, so she won one of the free pizzas at the end of today. One of you guys who hasn't already won will be lucky enough to win a free pizza, or the loyalty points that account for that pizza from 4-star. So something to look forward to at the end, but hopefully you're here for the actual learning. That's what we're going for. So I am going to start us off by just reading the kind of intro for today. It's topic number 5, position your product. Your pitch is an essential tool to engage customers as well as investors, employees, mentors, etc. It tells people why they should care about your business and want to learn more. Featured thought leader David Mandell is co-founder and CEO of Pivot Desk, Techstars 2012 acquired by SquareFoot, former managing director of global communications for Deloitte Consulting, and a Techstars EIR. His experiences have given him insight into great messaging and product positioning. In this module, David shares actionable insights on how to effectively communicate your business through your pitch and drive customers to your solution. So, as you guys will get from that brief, it is a very pitching, presenting focused workshop today. We're going to go through the videos. We'll start with the trailer, which is always very exciting, and then we'll go through kind of the tactics. I'm just going to scroll us down here. This is the first video. This is the trailer. So you guys should be able to hear, but on the off chance that it doesn't work and you can't hear, if somebody just throws into the comments, I will play it again and make sure that the video is working. But without further ado, we're going to go for the intro.
Some of you probably think you're okay at it, but trust me, you suck. You will be so goddamn sick of this pitch But that's okay, that's how it should be. Every single one of you is resource constrained, money constrained, people constrained. The only real weapon you have is focus. By having a good pitch, which is clear about why you're doing what you're doing, where you're going, why people should care, why you're different, why you're better. If you think you've nailed the pitch and no one's reacting, you haven't nailed the business. Nobody gives a shit what you do. They care about why you're gonna make their life better. Businesses are built on pain and making pain go away. And you do it for the life of your company.
Right. So I love the one line he says there, just to start us off, like businesses are built on pain, and you'll see these are the kind of workshops we're going to go through today. Identify the pain points is one of them. But for any of you who have ever done a value proposition canvas before, it is a great way to start to understand the pains of your customer, which is a really good lead in to doing this exercise. So if you haven't before, if down the road you're developing an idea, a good way to start out would be to start by looking at the pains and gains you might create for, or pains you might relieve and gains you might create for a consumer, and then see how you might relieve them. And I think this exercise leads pretty well off of it. So the things we're going to go today, your pitch is critical. Identify the pain points, build an emotional connection, know your positioning, simplify your pitch is the final one. So we're going to simplify our pitch and make it pretty straightforward. And then as always at the end, we're going to go through and just scroll through the exercises. We might not actually do them today because the idea is you guys can take them away with you, but there is something to go from. Thanks for that, Joseph. Glad to hear the audio is working. If at any point there are challenges, do just let me know and I'll work with you guys. But without further ado, if there are no questions off the intro, which I wouldn't imagine there are, we're going to dive right into your pitch is critical. Pitching is more than preparing for a demo day. It's a critical part of building your business. In this section, you'll learn how to identify if your pitch is working or not, and how to use it as a testing ground to gain customers. I love the idea of a pitch as a testing ground. So we'll get right into it.
I'm David Mandell. I am the founder and CEO of Pivot Desk. We help entrepreneurs find room to grow their businesses. We went through Techstars in 2012 here in Boulder, and have been busting our asses to try and grow the business ever since. Prior to doing startups, Pivot Desk was actually my fourth startup, but prior to doing startups, most of my career was actually marketing, PR, communications in Manhattan. A couple of agencies, worked for a couple of really big firms, a couple of really big clients, so I have some background in messaging, positioning, and pitching, and that kind of thing. Now, you guys, I know, haven't gotten deep into the pitch yet. Some of you probably think you're okay at it because we've gone through some mentor meetings and I've heard them, but trust me, you suck. And you suck just because no one's really told you the right way to pitch your business. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Inherent in the pitch is a lot of things that we'll get into. This is not just about pitching a demo day. And that's like the biggest point I want to make here, right? Like demo day is a single day event. What we're going to talk about today is how you're going to pitch your business for the rest of your career in this business. And I joke around a lot, but I'm actually dead serious. If you're the CEO or any senior executive at a startup, and someone breaks into your house or apartment at 3 in the morning, rests you up on the shoulders and says, "What do? You sit up and you pitch." Right? And if you can't do that, you don't have the pitch down. You will be so goddamn sick of this pitch. But that's okay, that's how it should be. Because no one else has heard it, right? You've heard it over and over and over. But remember, you've got to get out of your own shorts, right? People aren't here listening to you every day. They've never heard it. So you've got to have it down. It's got to be reactionary. It's got to be ingrained. And you've got to keep iterating on it. So it's a very, very important thing. And I'll get into some of the reasons why as we kind of go forward. So why is the pitch critical? The pitch does a couple of things for your business, right? And a lot of the feedback I get from Techstars companies when I talk to them earlier on the program is, I don't worry about my pitch yet. I got to grow my business. I got to hire a dev. I got to build out the database. I've got to find customers. I've got to show growth. Like, don't fucking bug me about the pitch yet. And you're missing a really big point. The pitch is critical because, by a show of hands here in this room, how many people have too much money? How many people have too many resources? How many people have too much time and just don't know what to do with it? Right? None of you. Every single one of you is resource constrained, money constrained, people constrained. The only real weapon you have is focus. Focusing everything you do have in one direction at one goal. Because as soon as you start spreading resources, you're wasting time, you're wasting money, you're losing ground in the fight. The first thing the pitch does is keep you and your entire company focused. By having a good pitch, which is clear about why you're doing what you're doing, where you're going, why people should care, why you're different, why you're better, everybody that comes into work that day at your company knows exactly why they're doing what they're doing, what they should be doing, and what the goal is. And if something comes up on the roadmap that isn't critical to that goal, they can make a decision and understand they shouldn't be wasting their time there. So the pitch is really important to keep you focused. The second thing it does is it helps you test your business. If you think you've nailed the pitch and no one's reacting, you haven't nailed the business. So you need to keep figuring out what's right and what's wrong. Right? So this is a lot more than getting up on stage and pitching at demo day. This is about keeping your business focused, moving forward in a very specific way, and helping you drive success in your company. Do we understand that? Because that's really important, because I always get this, oh, don't bug me about the pitch. And then I sit down with the team, like, what do you guys do? It's like, well, here's what we do, and we do this, and then I ask them, it's like, well, we kind of do this too, and like we kind of do bullshit, right? You all have to be the same. And everyone in your company should know the pitch. Everyone. This is not just about the person that's pitching the business.
I love it. He's very straight to the point. It is about the pitch. It's about how you can stay focused. And I love that as a metaphor, the idea that like if you have your pitch right, your entire business can stay focused around it. It makes it a really good starting point, because I agree. I think a lot of people think of the pitch as kind of the end goal of developing your business. Once you have it, or once you're ready, then it's time to pitch and present. When in reality, you're constantly going to be pitching and presenting your business. That's why we typically start with an elevator pitch. But he's starting even earlier, so I love this. We're about to identify the pain points. Nobody cares about what you do, only how you're going to help them improve their life. In this section, you'll learn how to identify your customers' pain points and give them a reason to listen to your solution. Sounds good. We'll dive in. And again, guys, if you have questions as we go, just type them into the chat and I'll jump onto them as soon as the latest video is done.
So let's get into like the first big lesson about pitching in startups. And this, like, if you remember one thing from this talk, remember this. Nobody gives a shit what you do. You think it's really cool. You're in your office every day building shit and doing cool stuff. Nobody gives a shit what you do. They only care about how you're going to help them. And this is like, I can tell you 99.9% of the startups I talk to do this wrong. I said, hey, tell me about your business. It's like, well, we're a connected network of interplanetary, social, local, mobile applications that helps you evolve data from here to here. And I don't give a fuck. That's what you do. I don't care what you do. What I care about is how you're going to help me. Why are you going to make my life different? Don't ever tell me what you do. Tell me why I should care, and I'll give you an example. So Pivot Desk is a technology-enabled real estate platform that handles monthly financial and communication transactions between leaseholders and tenants. That's what we do. It's exactly what we do every day. How interesting is that? Someone asked me, what's Pivot Desk? Come on.
What's Pivot Desk?
Thanks for asking. Real estate is static. Businesses are dynamic. When you're out there busting your ass to build your business, the last thing you want to do is bet your business on a 5-year lease when you don't even know how big you're going to be 5 months from now. Pivot Desk helps you grow your business the way it should grow, not the way real estate dictates, by helping you either share your extra space with a company that needs it, or finding the right space for now without committing to a long-term lease. Understand the difference?
Really interesting. It's always the examples that get me in these, that it's just like really clear the difference between how I've seen people, and I've been guilty of giving the pitch where it's here's how we do what we do versus giving the here's why what we do matters and why it might matter to you. It's really good. Some interesting advice coming from Margaret. I once received advice that when writing script, you go meet a friend for coffee, start telling them the story, then in the middle of it, head to the loo. If when you come back they want to talk about something else, your story probably needs to be reconsidered. Might work for a business pitch as well, in the initial stage at least. I love it. I love it, Margaret. That's a great idea. I think the idea of giving somebody the initial idea and then letting them ask for more, it's a lot of what I would talk about in the elevator pitch, as kind of your elevator pitch being that initial short bit that's meant to entice. If people aren't interested enough to ask questions after that, then it didn't work, because the idea of being in an elevator and talking to somebody about your idea, you only get something out of that if they're asking so many questions that you don't have time to answer them and you need to have a follow-up meeting. So the goal is to be that hook, to get people interested. I think today we're taking it from a bit of a different angle, because it's interesting. It's the idea of like, what is the pain point? What is the pain that you're solving for the person that you're talking to? So yeah, interesting insight. We'll jump into building an emotional connection. Businesses are built on pain, and until you can connect with your customers' pain points, they will not care about your solution. In this section, you'll learn how to build an emotional connection with your target audience and give them a reason to listen. Make sense? We'll jump right in.
Nobody gives a shit what you do. They care about why you're going to make their life better. So inherent in that is emotion. Nobody buys because of logic. They buy because of emotion. They justify the purchase with logic. So start with emotion. If you cannot open up an emotional window in your target audience's mind, they will not care about you. What that does is gives you the permission to go deeper. You have to understand their pain. Really, businesses are built on pain and making pain go away. So until you can open that emotional window, understand their pain and understand what they're dealing with, they won't give you the permission to go deeper. Once they feel an emotional connection with what you're doing, then they're more than happy to say, okay, cool, tell me how that works. How do I do this? How do I get involved? Or how are you better than this? Right now you have an opportunity to talk more and to go deeper and to really connect with who your audience is. So like, I know the pain of my audience. We talked about the entrepreneurial pain just now, right? But there's a lot of other constituents in who we serve, right? There's brokers, there's landlords. I know every single one of their pain. And I know how to communicate with them. And I'll give you a great, like, real example that you'll get in a second. So we were invited, CBRE in LA hosted an event for all like real estate tech companies to come set up little booths, and then everyone had like a 90-second pitch to talk about what they were doing for all their brokers. And it was probably 60 or 70 brokers. And it was just a big line of CEOs like getting up and doing their 90-second pitch. And I was, I think, 14th or 15th in line. And you could tell, like after the third or fourth person, every single broker in the audience was like this. Just sitting on their phone, doing their email, completely numb to what was going on. And I saw this, I'm like, oh, good, this is gonna suck. So I gotta like do something different. So I get up there, and before I start my pitch, say, hey, I'm David Mandell, I'm the CEO of Pivot Desk. I started Pivot Desk because I fucking hate real estate. Every single broker stood up, put their phone down, and started listening. I said, I hate real estate because it puts you between a rock and a hard place when you're trying to help customers. You spend your life stuck between a static infrastructure and dynamic companies and trying to fit those two together, not making anybody happy. struggling with both sides. What I want to do is give you a tool, a solution that lets you help your customers in a way that you become their partner, not a salesperson, and still helps you close the leases that your landlords are demanding. And then everybody listened. So you understand the difference of emotion? I went right for their pain point. I shocked them, and they went right for their pain point. And that's why they gave me the permission to talk more about what it is I do. Otherwise, no one, not a single person in that audience would have remembered who we were. Yes?
So really, you have a set of pitches that are context sensitive. So when you were talking about making sure everybody in your company knows your pitch, do they all have to have all of those and know when to use the right one? Or
I have one pitch. I start it a little differently based on who I'm talking to. But I know how you deal every day trying to help customers between the. That's why Pivot Desk works. We help companies grow their business the way it should grow. But so we go right into the same pitch every time. But think of it this way. You need one pitch that works for every audience. You may start it off slightly differently depending on who you're talking to, but it's the same damn pitch. And once you're finished, you can go in either direction you want. The pitch is all about connecting and getting the opportunity to say more.
So with your target and the different constituents, I guess obviously you were able to find a commonality between us poor bastards who are trying to rent space and the people who are trying to take our money.
Yeah. I could start without any different intro, regardless of who my audience is. And I do this often, like when I talk at either startup conferences or real estate conferences as a broker, it's the same pitch. It works for every single one of them because they all understand the pain of the ecosystem that they live in. They have different motivations, and that's what I go to afterwards. But it's always the same pitch.
Really interesting that that the same pitch kind of carries over regardless, but you have a different intro just to kind of get that emotional connection off the bat. I see, Colm, you added in a bit about your business that you're setting up yourself. That's really exciting that you built it off the back of a pain point. So I'd imagine this is connecting pretty well. If you have the right pain that you are there to solve, the business is often pretty intuitive, but then you can come up with the innovation around it. So that's really cool. I'm happy to hear it's going well. And Margaret, it has to be something to care about and understand to keep going with it. Well done. Yeah, no, exactly. You must have a passion. It's something you care about. So yeah, it makes sense that you'd keep running with it and making it happen. So we just went through build an emotional connection. Now we're going to go into know your positioning. So I think this is where you fall. So building a positioning statement and pitch for your business means truly understanding your target audience, their pain points, your competitors, and more. In this section, you'll learn to use the 5 components of a positioning framework to develop your pitch. Cool. Now we're going to get into actually developing the pitch. Let's go for it.
So let's talk about the actual meat of how this works. Right? So this is the positioning framework. Who's your target audience? What's their pain? What's your value prop? Who are your competitors? And what's your differentiation? You have to know these things about your business. You have to be able to very, very specifically define each of these things. And when I say specifically, I mean specifically. I talk to a lot of companies like, who's your target market? It's like, well, this is kind of cool for everyone. Like if you're trying to sell to everyone, you're not going to sell to anyone. You don't have the marketing budget, the bandwidth, the time to try and sell anything to everyone. Pick who they are. Understand their pain. Understand why they care, why they should care. What's your real value prop? Competitors. When I say competitors, it doesn't necessarily have to be another business that does what you do or close to what you do. Your competitors could be time on your phone. It could be hanging out with your kid. Like, what are the things distracting people, or what are the other things people will be doing except other than using your product or service? So understand what you're competing with and differentiation. Why are you better? Why should they care? So let's go actually think it through. So these are the sentences you should be writing. Once you get these down, this becomes your positioning. I don't mean verbatim, right? So you heard me talk about Pivot Desk before. I didn't say this, but all of this was in there, right? You have to know this first. So 4, who's your target audience? Very specifically, entrepreneurs trying to figure out where to put their business. Brokers trying to close deals for companies that they can't help or couldn't help before or are frustrated. Right? Very, very specific. Pain, don't want to commit to a long-term lease or are trying desperately to find a space that works for both their customer and their landlord. Tired of signing leases that aren't good for their business. Like, what is their specific pain that you're addressing? Value prop. We help you grow your business the way it should grow, not the way real estate dictates. We help you find solutions for customers you could never help before. We help you become their partner instead of a salesperson. As opposed to the traditional way, where you have to bet your business on a lease that you have no idea is right for your business, or you have to risk pissing off a customer or client because they end up in a bad lease, or you have to say no to somebody because you can't help them in the traditional option. We look at it differently. We provide a matching marketplace that helps you find space for companies that can't sign a lease yet, or helps you help your companies that signed a long-term lease and have no idea when they're going to need all of it by finding the right companies for them to share that space with. Right? And I'll go deeper, but you have to have these answers as specifically as possible to understand your business. If you can't answer any of these right now, you need to figure it out. Remember, this is not your pitch, but this is the basis, the framework, the whole foundation of your pitch. Until you know these things, you cannot get up and pitch well.
Really interesting. I always personally love the formulas. I love that he gave us the 4 target audience who has a pain. We put your value proposition as opposed to competitors, we, and how you differentiate. It's really interesting. I see in the chat there, Joseph, you have a question. Colin, if you're able to help him as well, that's awesome. I'm going to give my 2 cents. I'd imagine by floating, as you said, yeah, it's changing. So if your target market is changing and who it is that you're providing value to is changing, I think one exercise that you might go back to is actually, I'm not sure if it was number 2 or number 3 that we went through in the Techstars Toolkit. It's running empathy interviews. It's understanding your customer and actually sitting down and asking them these deep questions can get you a lot of insights into how you're solving a pain point specifically for them. Just changing in my head, if you know what I mean. Yeah, absolutely. If it's in your head that you're well, a good way to figure out if it's just in your head or if the customers are actually changing their points of view or if there's a different customer there is to actually just sit down and talk to as many of them as you possibly can. And I think this could help because you'll have your kind of elevator pitch put together. And if you sit down with them, as Margaret had said before, maybe have that coffee and see if they're still interested, if you are actually solving a real pain for them, then that's a really good way to maybe go forward. But I'd say, yeah, the more of your potential customers you can talk to and understand their pain point, the better off you are. But Colin or Margaret, if you have anything to add, yeah, help out in the chat as we move forward. So I'll keep us going. I think this is the last of them. It's like an elevator pitch. It's very quick today, but that means we'll have a bit of time to scroll through and talk about the actual exercises and how you guys might apply this. So last but not least, we're going to simplify your pitch. As much as you want to, you can't say everything in your pitch. In this section, you'll learn how to simplify your pitch to get the reactions you want from customers and investors. Always looking at those investors. How are we going to end up with the money we need to make our business a reality? So with that, let's start it out.
Finally, this isn't easy. People want to do this quickly. They're going to leave this meeting and you're going to write your positioning down and say, okay, I'm done. You're not. This takes a lot of work, a lot of iteration, a lot of testing. Once you think you have it down, start pitching people. See their reaction. Is it resonating with them? Is it clicking? Are you making your point, or are they left with a quizzical look on their face? Or do they say, oh, that's kind of cool, and then they walk away because they don't really give a shit, they just don't want to insult you? When they look at you when you pitch, are they saying, oh, I get that, that's very cool. Where do I learn more? How do I figure that out? Or I know someone that needs that. Right? That's the kind of reaction you need. And that comes from iteration. Continually practicing and changing. When we went through Techstars, I think we had, I don't know what the final count was, but somewhere around 80 different versions of our pitch before demo day. And it's changed since demo day. But I will never forget, like, and I'm good at this shit, right? Like, I've done this before. It's still fucking hard, especially doing it for yourself. Like, I can help anyone in this room like that. When I try and do it for myself, it's hard. Because you want to say everything, right? You want to talk about all the wonderful things you're doing. And you don't want to miss anything because you're not sure what thing is that's going to really matter. And you can't. It's all about simplicity. And simplicity is really complex, right? It takes getting rid of a lot of stuff, right? What's the really critical thing to say first so you have the opportunity to say the rest? It is constant work, constant. And you should always be tweaking it and testing it and watching the emotion and seeing how people react and trying different things until you get it down. And once you get it down, you say it over and over and over. So at any point in time, you can launch into your pitch. I have like keywords and phrases for my pitch that in any conversation launch me right into my pitch. Like I said when I started, if someone breaks into your house or apartment at 3 a.m, shakes your shoulders and says, what do? You sit up and you fucking pitch. That's your job. It's not optional. It's not something you can delegate. And you do it for the life of your company. I convinced one time the global CEO of Deloitte Consulting that this is how it worked. We were repositioning the whole company. I launched, for those of you who don't know, I actually launched the Deloitte Consulting brand in the mid-90s. I was their managing director of global communications. I was working with the global CEO. And I was walking them through this, and like 3 weeks into it, he said, David, I am goddamn sick of it. I can't say it again. I said, Pat, I don't care. You have to keep saying it. Every phone call you have, every interview you have, every time you talk to your employees or your customers or anyone, you have to say it. And about 3 months in, he called me in. He had just finished like an interview with the Journal or something. He looked at me and said, I think it's working. I said, it's just starting. He was like, oh. But that's how it works.
Really interesting. It's about the idea of like developing your pitch and then applying it so much that everybody gets to know it and then saying it a little bit more. I was just looking at the chat there, Colin, great insight there. Joe, just the idea of taking this as maybe a positive rather than a negative. There are a lot of people who you can solve a problem for. Maybe there are different markets. And yeah, Colin, dead on with the idea. Try to look at the biggest, the best, the one that you want to address first, and then maybe work out from there. And yeah, Margaret, nice of you to offer your family for some interviews. Hopefully you and Joseph can connect. Cool. So guys, those are the videos, the exercises that kind of set us up. But now I'm just going to scroll really quickly up to the top here, where we can go to do the exercises. And as I said, you guys can find this all online. You can go to the Techstars Toolkit and do the exercises yourself. But for now, I'm going to click here. Brings us through, and again, you can navigate right back to the videos there if you want to see them again. So rather than me reading through, this is essentially just paraphrasing, as in most of these. It's just paraphrasing what it is that was said in the workshop. But start by writing down briefly what your company does. It's a good place to start, what you think your company does. You then go through and start working through the pain points, the emotions, and the communications. So the idea of like, what is the pain that you're going to be solving for? And this may actually be really good for you, Joseph, in particular, if you're looking at what are the pain points of the different people that you may be talking to, the emotions associated with that, and how you're going to be able to connect with them. Because there may be certain pain points that you're able to connect with more easily or more naturally with the business that you think you're building, or the business that you are building connects more naturally with the pain points of these people versus these people, or you can message it a certain type of way. But that's then the next good exercise to jump into. Look at your target audience. So who is it you're trying to target? That will come out of the pain points that you say. So you can have as many pain points for as many different people, and then streamline it towards which one is your target audience. So the example, pivot desk's target audience, commercial real estate brokers, and entrepreneurs. That would be an example. And then what are their specific pain points? So if you go back up, you look at what are the specific pain points of that target audience, put those in, then your value proposition, so how you solve a problem for them, what is your offering to those customers, write that in, and then competitors. So who else might be doing this? You may have traditional competitors, but competitors don't necessarily mean other companies. I loved his example of the idea that somebody spending too much time on their phone could be a competitor. Like if somebody's spending too much time on their phone, they may not be coming out to your event. So anything and everything that could be a competitor, but in this case, in the elevator pitch, I think you're streamlining to the most obvious competitor that you may have, or the first thing that would come to somebody's mind. Then how you differentiate. So what makes you different? Once you address the fact that you have competitors, because every business has some sort of competitor, then how are you different? What makes you stand out? Here's Pivot Desk's statement. I love this. So we provide a matchmaking marketplace that help brokers to find space for companies that aren't ready to sign a long-term lease. We help growing companies either find the right space for the size of their business without a long-term lease, or share their leased space to partially cover the cost. You can write your statement built out of everything that came before, and you look at the kind of like format that he had given us before, the 4 target audience, who has a pain, we, value proposition, as opposed to competitors, we, and how you differentiate. That's your positioning statement, builds into your draft pitch. And then finally at the end, read it aloud. Does it feel conversational and easy to say? You can use these questions to simplify your pitch. Are you connecting with the customer's pain point? Major key. Have you opened an emotional window? Are you speaking to that pain point in a way that emotionally connects to them? Do you share how you'll make their life better? How are you going to improve their life? I mean, he was very blunt about it, but the idea that if you can't tell me how you're going to make my life better, I'm going to lose interest in your idea, if it's meant to solve a problem for me. And then does every word need to be there? Exactly. You're trying to cut it and streamline it down if you can say it more concisely. And this is something that I think a lot of people might be able to give you feedback on. People can give you, here's how you might say that a bit more concisely, or just build directly to the pain points. And then finally, how can you make it shorter, simpler, and more impactful? And yeah, then it's testing your pitch on as many other people as you can, and seeing what you get back. I think that this is a really good exercise for you guys, no matter what stage of your business you're at, to actually just go out there and start talking to as many people as you can. And I think this is pretty good for the structure. So as I said, the link is at the top. Right now, I'm going to keep going through just a few things here, but as I am, if you guys have any kind of like closing questions or comments or things that you want to address before we kind of wrap things up, do let me know in the comments. What I will say is all of these exercises are really good because at the end you can click this button in the bottom right, save your work. So you're actually able to save your work, export it as a PDF, and just have a series of documents that you've worked through, which you can either save online or you can save just print out. I don't know. I know some people are more physical. I'm the physical person. I need like a physical piece of paper in order to work with. But we try to be eco-friendly, so it does make sense if you can save it online.